your jobs, because the reading will help you understand the uses of mathematics, because the reading tells you how the material from one lesson is related to other material in the book. Paul Dowling has conducted an extensive critical examination of a variety of mathematics textbooks used in British schools. Oh my God. He distinguished texts routinely used in schools serving students from working class backgrounds and those in more elite schools, demonstrating that the textbooks used in more elite schools have a greater density of propositions and ground explanations with justifications based on disciplinary postulates, while the textbooks used in working class schools have less text and ground explanations in real world context, rather than the self-referential links to mathematical reasoning. Grantlinger repeated Dowling's analysis of the same finding using two texts used in U.S. geometry classes: Geometry for Enjoyment and Challenge, used as a reformed text to help students make mathematical connections with the real world, and a geometry unit Grantlinger himself developed to teach mathematical for social justice. The Road text has few, if any, problems involving real-world examples. The chapter on area from which the examples is taken begins by defining terms. It employs phrases like closed region, boundary of the region, as in the area of a closed region is the number of square units of space within the boundary of the region. Beyond the obtuse language, the Road text represents a logic that is special to mathematics. It stipulates a set of propositions that serve as the basis upon which a set of theorems are derived. The postulate is stated first in natural language. The area of a rectangle is equal to the product of the base and the height for that base, but does not define terms such as product and base. It then gives the same proposition in a mathematical formula. A equals BH, where B is the length of the base and H is the height. By contrast, Glencoe's reformed geometry text consistently situates problems in real-world context. It defines ideas and in the margin provides tips, including what they call reading math tips. The use of reading math tips suggests that the publishers recognize that reading mathematical text and using the information in math textbooks requires strategic knowledge that goes beyond the mathematics itself. In some respects, then, we might consider that the Glencoe text a more considerate text for struggling readers, in the sense that more key terms are defined, strategies are explicitly provided for reading the text, and applications are rooted in real-world experience. On the other hand, Dowling and Grantlinger each argue that texts such as Glencoe also provide students with fewer opportunities to engage the decontextualized nature of mathematics that students are more likely to meet in college mathematics classes, where the logic of reasoning from postulates to theorems and constructing mathematical proofs that involve multiple interconnected theorems is normally expected. If we take Dowling's cautions to heart, work being done at the college level to help students learn how to read the types of textbooks used in advanced mathematics classes also have relevance for reading high school mathematics textbooks. The examples in box 7 illustrates the specialized nature of reading mathematics as we expect to find in textbooks that are focused on disciplinary language of mathematics, which is quite different from the treatment of mathematical topics we are likely to find in general interest articles in newspapers, magazines, and journals. Mathematics textbooks in what Dowling calls either the esoteric or expressive domain typically include the Greek alphabet as mathematical symbols: alpha, beta, chi, pi, sum, for explication of theorems and proofs using mathematical notation, as well as sentences in natural language. We see these features in the illustration. Readers of that text must be able to understand the following. The second sentence of the second paragraph explains the first sentence in the paragraph. Oh, come on. The final sentence of the second paragraph indicates that the reader should pay special attention to how the total number of people, the n, influences the probability. Should I keep reading?
Oh, go ahead.
It's my turn. The meanings and functions of a proof in mathematics.
How to illustrate in the third paragraph map on the algorithm for solving the problem.
Algorithm. Sorry, math words. I'm a math person.
The meaning of algebraic sentences such as Q in 1 P in 3 C 5 N. The logical function of the supposition of the proof capture and the use of the term let in the phrase let Q in equal 1 P N.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be let Q of n equal 1 minus P of n.
Okay. Researchers working on how to make text understandable recommend that students understand the logic of stipulated definitions. Examine carefully how theorems and proofs are worked together in the examples and be sure to understand the underlying logic. Use paper and pencil or calculators while they are reading to retest and apply equations to their own examples. This is a unique, challenging process involving a whole different logic from reading in other disciplines such as social science, history, and literature. While this college text level example helps to emphasize the issue involving reading mathematics, another example from a high school text illustrates how reading and writing are entailed in constructing and communicating mathematical proofs. This task is taken from the Glencoe geometry book. Given that M is the midpoint of PQ, write a paragraph proof to show that PM equal,
No.
or is it
Equivalent.
equivalent?
So line PM is equivalent to line MQ.
The example illustrates how students are expected to be able to write the logic of proofs in a paragraph. From that includes words as well as mathematical notations. Students are expected to understand the example as a mathematical text and then be able to produce such text themselves. But if readers are to accomplish such tasks, they need explicit and repeated instructions focused on the specific language and form of communication that mathematics is. We should not underestimate the importance of our students being able to understand the language and logic of mathematics as captured in mathematic textbooks. Without such understanding, advanced mathematics will simply be not accessible. Even if our young people do not intend to pursue careers in pure or applied mathematics or the various branches of science, take 3 to 4 years of high school mathematics and associates with higher SAT and ACT scores for college admission, and also better prepare students for college. Or, however, successfully navigating high school mathematics courses, young people will typically form a lifelong habit of reading newspapers and magazine articles that draw on mathematical evidence more critically, and this ability will help them to act as informed citizens. John Allen Paulus, professor of mathematics at Temple University, has written widely about the impact of mathematical literacy for the public's understanding of a wide range of issues from health to demographics, including how authors of newspapers and magazine articles can manipulate the numeric data they use to convince lay readers to support particular positions. In a mathematician reads the newspaper, Paulus examines newspaper articles on topics ranging from economic, business, and social issues to health and lifestyle issues, showing how readers can pose critical questions about the propositions and point of view in the articles by drawing on a basic background in the mathematics involved.
Okay. I don't know where you're stopping. Paulus also examines public discussions that use numerical data to create a sense of urgency about a particular issue, arguing that typical misunderstandings about probability often lead the public to assume that a set of outcomes or events are more probable than they actually are. If, as a consequence of typical K-12 mathematics instruction, our high school graduates are able to develop core conceptual understanding and enjoy routine opportunities with support to read and critique a wide range of extended texts involving mathematical data, the types of mistaken reading assumptions Paulus cites will naturally become far less common. There are existing projects that integrate these two foci for reading in mathematics classroom. For example, the Reading to Learn Mathematics project involves helping students better comprehend the technical language, syntax, and logic of math textbooks, as well as learning to read a range of real-life texts involving mathematics. The project aligns reading in mathematics classrooms with inquiry-based instruction, with the goals of helping students learn to think mathematically and to value both the aesthetics and the applicability of mathematics. From several studies in an urban alternative high school in Rochester, New York, with a diverse student population, the designers of this project have postulated a series of functions, see box number 8, of reading in the mathematics classroom. Just as there are good arguments regarding the inclusion of history and philosophy of science in the middle to high school science curriculum, there are also excellent reasons to call for the reading of extended texts in the history of mathematics. Reading a wide array of mathematics-centric and mathematics-related texts in the classroom can generate lifelong interest and support learning to reason mathematically.
I know Shauna is a math person. Is anyone else planning on teaching math?
Yeah.
So do you guys see any importance on reading in a math classroom?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Can you elaborate a little bit more why you think that?
Well, for especially for the word problems, you know, they gotta understand what they're asking, because if they don't know how to read it, they're not. Like, for instance, my son, when he reads a question, he doesn't understand what they're asking, and I have to sit there and say, okay, point to what's important, you know. So I think when going back when he was younger, when he had that, since he's starting math more into it, since they're taking the STAR test now, I don't think in the classroom they sit there and go over, you know, how to read and understand the word problem, which I think is very important, because most of your STAR test, if they're basing off the STAR test, it's all word problem.
Oh yeah. What about you, May?
Yeah, well, I think also some students understand things by reading, some understand by hearing. There's no, sometimes there's a mix of the two, but I was interviewing this for my math course girl, and I actually read to her the question, but she had a problem getting all the numbers right, because it was not an easy question. There were many numbers in there, but when I gave her something to read, she said, oh yeah, I can solve that easily. So reading obviously means more to some than others, but I think it's pretty important. Like, for example, like my daughter's also doing STAR test this year in 3rd grade, and a lot of times when she got the questions wrong, it's because she didn't understand the question.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
And they just get, they give them this packet to work on, and I tell my son to do it, and then we'll go over it. Just think of it as a quiz, just do it, and we're going to talk about it. He got to the point where he just started circling because he didn't want to read it. And so I think to have that confidence in their reading is what is very helpful. And if their teacher doesn't do that, then they're not going to succeed.
See, the thing that math teachers have resorted to doing now is they give them a strategy. Highlight this. What's it say? More than, that means you subtract. They give them formulas, but then that also is a
They don't
drawback.
explain it.
Yeah, it's a drawback, because then when the questions phrase it in a different way, and then they thought, oh, I see this phrase, it means I have to subtract, and then it's not right. Yeah, so that's another
And I may
thing.
do it a different way than they do it. And I'm thinking of, okay, when I was little, I did it this way. He's like, no, Mom, it's not right. And I was thinking, it's the right answer. Like, you can do it multiple ways, son. He's like, no, I had to do it the way she does it. I'm like, and it drives me nuts, because there's more than one way to get
There's
to
definitely more than
an
one.
answer. And if they're only stuck to one way, it's not going to help them.
That's really weird, because what I'm learning now in my other course, apart from this, is cognitively guided instruction. So you let the kids solve it, and then we all talk about all kinds of solutions.
Oh, no.
So there's no one way of doing things.
Oh yeah, that's
It's
basically
strictly
what
one way, and it drives me bonkers. So I teach him all these different ways, and he's like, that's it, Mom.
I don't even teach it. I say, so how do you think you'll solve this? What do you know about this? you
What have
figure
you
it out.
learned before?
Yeah, you figure it out, and then I'll tell you, or I'll guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm gonna read this part. Yeah. What does research imply about struggling readers in disciplinary literacy? There are many potential areas of instruction that can have rippling effect for the expansion of readers' repertoire of skills, including pre-reading, predicting, testing hypotheses against the text as it unfolds, asking questions, summarizing, etc. Instruction can also build prior knowledge, context, and vocabulary, as well as a broad knowledge of syntax. Box 9 summarizes what we think we should be taught to meet the needs of adolescent struggling readers in the content areas. By explicitly rapidly expanding the range of kinds of text that the students read in context area courses, students can actually expand opportunities to learn content knowledge. Prior knowledge has been repeatedly shown as a strong predictor of comprehension. Building and activating prior knowledge in relation to academic disciplines is one area that content area classrooms are uniquely positioned to accomplish. It is precisely because the content area classrooms are explicitly sites for building discipline-specific knowledge that we believe they can be extraordinarily helpful to students who are struggling readers, as well as the expanding of competencies of those who are reading at grade level. However, wrestling with the tensions of addressing content standards and helping students learn to be a better reader is complex and requires a principled and systematic approach to text selection, sequencing, and coordination with other discipline-related problem solving. Instructors should design knowledge-building activities that do not require extensive reading initially, then introduce different kinds of texts that are within students' instructional reading levels where they can use prior knowledge already developed to tackle discipline-related problems in the text. Such discipline-related problems include posing discipline-specific questions and extrapolating information from text in order to solve authentic and complex problems. Increasing the complexity of these texts in terms of proportional knowledge given, propositional knowledge assumed, text structures, synthetic structures, vocabulary, and explicit coherence over time. Box 10 captures that logic. Teaching content knowledge and reading strategies in tandem. In successful content area classrooms, teachers organize instructions in routine ways that reinforce conceptions of reading as meaning-making process, provide guided support for making sense while students are engaged in the acts of reading, shift responsibility for thinking and making sense of text to students themselves through guided support in both small and whole group work, sequence discipline-specific inquiry tasks, and the reading of a range of disciplines, focus text in ways that build knowledge and dispositions over time, focus classroom talk on how students make sense of text, and how they use what they learn from text to carry out discipline-specific thinking tasks, or what Reisnick and colleagues call accountable talk.
Provide consistent support so that students experience success and develop or reinforce their sense of efficacy as readers, as well as students who value the practices of disciplines as these are initiated in authentic classroom tasks. The most important key to these core practices is creating a culture of high expectations through building routines. Routines help to establish students' expectations for what they do, how they do things, and why. The following quote, often cited by the Strategic Literacy Initiative, clearly reflects the often unstated assumption about reading in the content areas that struggling readers have learned over many years of academic failure and low-level classroom tasks. It wasn't like it was spread all over the place, like you had to read it. It was just like if they red square question was here, you knew it was somewhere around that area right there, and you could just look for the answer and copy it down, and you got full credit for it, so you didn't have to read it. It was something that you could like slide by without them knowing. I don't know if they cared or not, but that's the way everybody did it. You see the red square question, and you sort of calculate where it's around, you find the answer, and you write it down, and that's it. Rosa, a 9th grade student, describing her experience reading history, as opposed to asking students to read for homework or as a classroom assignment and then simply answering questions when they finish reading. Literacy-rich content area in classrooms include a variety of instructional routines that provide guidance to students before, during, and after reading. These routines may include the teacher modeling how he or she makes sense of the text. This long-standing routine based on the reciprocal teaching accomplishments two important functions. First, it shows the student that even expert readers, such as teachers, actively work to make sense of text and can, in fact, be confused by text. Second, it demonstrates how to deploy strategies purposefully, such as predicting, asking questions, and summarizing. Teachers also use a variety of thinking tools that direct students to engage in the kinds of generic reading strategies we have described and that are well documented in the research on reading comprehension.
These include but are not limited to the following: double entry journals where students post questions, observations of patterns in text, summarize, make connections. KWL, a graphic where students identify what they know, what they want to know, and after reading what they have learned. Graphic organizers that use text structures to guide what kinds of information students are reading for, or that map out the kinds of semantic knowledge students need to understand vocabulary, synonyms, antonyms, examples, attributes, morphemic analysis, and anticipation guides that list key ideas, including ideas that are counterintuitive or controversial that the teacher wants students to interrogate in reading a given text and to revisit after reading. Annotation of text to pose questions, mark main ideas, make predictions, mark reactions, analyzing question types, support for producing self-explanations.
Existing interventions addressing the needs of adolescent readers in the content areas. Among the publications growing out of the adolescent literacy incentive of the Carnegie Corporation of New York is Informed Choices for Struggling Readers, a research-based guide to instructional programs and practices, which describes a wide array of commercial and research programs and interventions focusing on struggling readers in middle and high school. Some of these programs, such as Read 180, address basic skills such as phonemic knowledge, fluency, and vocabulary. Evaluations of Read 180 have shown success for older readers whose basic skill needs persist. However, it is important to recognize that these students do not constitute the majority of students entering high school or who need additional reading instruction in the content areas. Also, we have emphasized across this document that even those students who enter high school reading at an even above grade level still need to be taught how to read deeply in the disciplines. There are a number of interventions, some involving involving use of technology aimed at helping high school students learn to read with understanding within and across academic disciplines. The Strategic Literacy Incentive at West Ed designs reading courses for students who enter high school as struggling readers and works with content area teachers to incorporate reading strategies into their instruction. They have demonstrated success in increasing reading achievement for students in their program, with evidence of 9th grade students gaining 2 years of improvement in 7 months of instruction. The project works not only with teachers, administrators, and literacy coaches, but also with teacher educators, thus aiming to influence multiple levels of education. The program explicitly addresses both the cognitive as well as the affective dimensions of reading, stressing the importance of students developing identities as readers. They are currently working in multiple school districts across the country. The Center for Research on Learning at the University of Kansas has developed an array of instructional routines to help teachers effectively present critical but potentially difficult to learn information that is presented in lectures and class discussions. These instructional methods are called content enhancement routines. Such routines are designed to help students acquire important background information, knowledge of critical concepts that underlie a body of discipline-specific content, and an understanding of how information on a given topic is structured. In as much as nearly 50% of class periods in secondary schools are spent in lecture and discussion, these routines have been designed to enable all students, regardless of their literacy level, to acquire essential content information during their class sessions. Having a grasp of this critical subject matter information enables students to better understand written text that they then attempt to read in their classes. The Disciplinary Literacy Project at LRDC at the University of Pittsburgh approaches teaching reading in the content area by focusing on building the infrastructure supports of school districts to build teaching capacity. The Disciplinary Literacy Project has organized teams in English, language, arts, science, history, and mathematics, working activities with district-level instructional leaders. This project hypothesizes that by building capacity at the district level, literacy supports are more likely to be distributed across schools. They have also developed a framework called accountable talk to encourage students to explain their thinking as they problem solve, including problem solving and reading. Specifically in science, there are several research projects that address what students need to know and to be able to read with understanding textbooks and other science-related texts. We mention these because attention to reading in science is a relatively new area within science reform efforts over the last decade.
The Centers for Highly Interactive Curricula, Classrooms and Computing in Education at the University of Michigan and Detroit Public Schools, among other secondary school settings, have developed project-based science curricula that include by well-written expository text, real-world text, and narrative case text that establish scientific problems for young people to explore through first-hand scientific investigation. Those challenging texts are made easily accessible to teachers and students. The reading of these texts is supported by professional development, with teachers focused on the integration of practices for teaching students how to engage in text-based and first-hand inquiry, with a focus on developing both scientific and everyday vocabulary, learning how to predict and set purposes for reading, and learning how to synthesize information from text. The Literacy in Science and Technology project at Northwestern University and the University of Illinois at Chicago uses technology to help high school students learn to annotate science texts and generate cohesive summaries. This work is unique not only because it focuses on science, but also because it uses technology to help students focus on main ideas, supporting details, typical content vocabulary, as well as markers of transitions and conclusions. In addition, students use double entry reflection logs to identify the main arguments in text, as well as attending to vocabulary. The program also makes use of Summary Street, the software program using latent semantic analysis evaluate summaries written by students. Much of the focus on helping students read to learn in content areas focuses on history and science courses. Educators often tend to assume that reading in literature is not problematic. In fact, high school English teachers are often drafted to teach the generic reading courses now being introduced in many high schools to help entering struggling readers. Sometimes English teachers see their role as asking students to read canonical literature rather than teaching students, especially struggling readers, to learn to read such texts. The Cultural Modeling Project identifies the kinds of strategies and concepts that readers need in order to interpret canonical literatures over a range of national traditions. The Cultural Modeling Project designs interventions that draw on relevant knowledge that ethnic minority students develop in their out-of-school experiences to scaffold rich literary reading. As with other subject matters, specific interventions, the Cultural Modeling Project makes explicit what good readers need to know and be able to do in order to interpret works of literature. This sampling of current research projects in adolescent literacy that can help adolescent struggling readers to read with understanding across their content area courses is not intended to be exhaustive. All the projects mentioned draw on a long history of research and reading comprehension, documenting how active and engaged readers monitor their understanding while reading, make predictions based on signals in the text, their prior knowledge, and their purpose of reading and summarize and extrapolate from text. These projects further draw from and contribute to our understanding of how strategic moves by good readers are both similar and different across the content areas. The projects represent concrete work happening on the ground across hundreds of schools, accumulating evidence about how systematically we can change the trajectories of adolescents who enter high school struggling as readers. Girlfriend. Conclusion. I was like this and that.
Then why don't you do it?
Okay, I can do it. There's no question that there is knowledge base to attack the problem of adolescent literacy in our middle and high schools. At this stage, it is only a question of finding the public will to act, coordinated from across the many stakeholders: federal and state governments, district and school leadership, teachers and teacher organizations, parents and community institutions. We have tried to illustrate in this report what reading in the disciplines require, what students need to know and value in order to wrestle with the demands. We have tried to show that these demands hold for students we perceive to be competent readers as well as those who are struggling. We have further tried to make the case that teaching our adolescent struggling readers does not necessitate a retraction from rigorous content learning, but rather than content learning and reading to learn are deeply intertwined, and that the very student who needs it the most currently have the least opportunities to become deeply literate across the content area.
Okay, good job, guys. I think I found a couple of solutions for how we integrate science and reading together. I saw a project-based science curricula that includes expository text and possibly, reflection logs to help them do writing as well. Stuff like that. Does anyone have anything else?
Well, then it seems that if you want, students to improve, it's not just one teacher. The whole school has to do it. Not just one level, like 8th grade doing it, because you have to build up. You can't just suddenly, incorporate it into one grade level and expect everybody else to follow. So it seems that what you need is like a school or district-wide change or policy for it to be effective.
Okay. So we'll take a break, and when we get back, we can talk about the aquatic descriptive investigation you guys did over the weekend.